I put a call out online for questions from the public.
Oh, dear.
To see, one of the questions that came up a lot.
I did interview David Bowie. It's no word of a lie. No, I'm just trying to change the subject.
You did.
Yeah.
You did. You interviewed a lot of people. I don't know if anybody remembers the new music, but it was. One of the questions that came up a lot was about Alberta's extraction policy.
Yeah.
And pipelines. How will you deal with that?
So Carney has signed this MOU with Danielle Smith, a piece of political theater that is really dangerous. There's a lot of things in that. I even wonder whether the pipeline might be a distraction. There's obviously no business case for it. There's no proponent.
Yes.
But there are a lot of other things that have to do with data centers and AI, shifting the electricity system to feed LNG and other fossil fuel projects, as well as these data centers. We're still learning the implications of some of the things in that deal. But basically, it's yet another grand bargain where a Liberal Prime Minister, like Trudeau before him, makes a deal with Alberta for a pipeline in exchange for, peace. So Alberta will
stop it. Yeah.
And Danielle Smith is definitely an incredibly experienced and skillful practitioner of the craft of Alberta, the Alberta, narrative. They're taken advantage of, they pay for everybody else's social programs, and they're somehow embattled as a province. And look, we paid $40+ billion of public money for the TMX pipeline on exactly the same political calculus, that somehow it would create a harmony between Ottawa and Edmonton. And it didn't work. Why is another one suddenly going to work?
$40 billion?
Sure. The TMX pipeline,
My
know
God,
what?
That is so offensive.
Well, it happened. We paid for it. Trudeau national. The only thing the Liberal government has nationalized since the 1940s or whatever, right?
Wow.
And, little details that just blow your mind. So much happens every day. The Friday before Chrystia Freeland resigned on the Monday morning, setting off the dominoes that would lead to Trudeau resigning and Carney coming in, the Friday afternoon, she authorized another $20 billion loan guarantee for the TMX pipeline. So this is, and now...
Do people know this?
I mean, I keep talking about it. And, now they're talking about dredging the Burrard Inlet in Vancouver, where I live, like digging up the bottom of the inlet so that these massive Aframax supertankers, biggest oil tankers in the world, we used to have one a week at that terminal in Burnaby. Then they did the TMX pipeline expansion. Now we have one a day. And they're like 70% full. They can't go fuller because they scrape the bottom. So they're talking about dredging the bottom of the harbor so that these massive tankers can be 100% full instead of 2/3 and increase another 400,000 barrels a day when the rest of the world has moved on. Like last year on planet Earth, there was $2.4 trillion invested in renewable energy and 1.1 in fossil fuels.
What did we invest?
I mean, we're just expanding fossil fuel production.
Yeah.
And there's just no need for it. So we need power lines, not pipelines. A 21st century grid with Canadian steel, tens of thousands of unionized jobs, roll out renewables across the country. Battery storage is becoming cheaper by the minute. And we have, like, as Bill McKibben says, the cheapest way to create energy on Earth is to point a piece of glass at the sun. We could be having a renewable revolution and trading electricity east-west instead of all the grids set up to sell electricity to the United States. And we could have energy independence as a country with renewables. Right. And the rest of the world is moving on, and we're doubling down on like a 1950s kind of paradigm. It's crazy.
Sorry, I have to go to my Instagram to see, because I asked people to DM these questions. So
this is a first for me, Samira. I appreciate it, though.
Really?
I mean, I haven't had someone in their DMs during an interview, fishing questions out of the internet.
Well, there we go.
But there's some really smart people who follow you.
This is a good question, and one that came up a lot. How much will proportional representation play in your campaign, and how can you see it changing the political landscape for the NDP?
Oh, it's so needed. It's so needed. I mean, I think people know that you can have absolute power in Canada with 36% of the vote nationally. And that's just not a democracy. And so the first past the post system has really warped our relationship to democracy. And I think it's a big concern these days. People are constantly having to vote against, trying to prevent the worst thing in whatever their worldview is, the worst thing from happening.
That was the last
election,
election.
100%.
Absolutely.
It's not just that it hurt the electoral fortunes of my party, it's alienating us from our franchise. People feel guilty and ugly about their vote. People don't feel that they're able to vote for anything. And so democracy becomes this like weird calculation defensive move that nobody feels good about. We should have more parties that represent clear choices that are coherent and that people can really vote their conscience every single time, and then watch parties come together and form coalitions, because Canadians love it when parties work together and govern
things get
that
done.
way. Things actually
Yeah.
get done. So my thing is, the next time the NDP has the clear balance of power in a Liberal minority, not like one seat razor thin minority and us only having 7 in the caucus like now, but like the last couple of parliaments, we don't go in with a menu of demands or a list of things to negotiate. One demand: proportional representation. That's the only one. Not studying it further or like deciding later or having a referendum. Implement the damn thing. Let's have a citizens assembly, a
Yes,
quick
yeah.
process to decide which version. There's lots of good ones. We can balance regional representation so there's still local representation in our system, and also proportionality. So the popular vote is how many seats you have in the parliament. And then we just implement it. And I think our political culture will realign, and we'll see all parties are big tents with these different contradictory forces within them. And we'll see some of those pieces break off, and we'll see new alignments and a new consensus in Canada. I believe there's a progressive majority in this country. There's a progressive majority for an independent foreign policy from the United States, particularly around Israel. There's a consensus in this country for renewable energy and real climate action. There's a consensus that we need to not just stop privatization in our healthcare, but expand. Eyes, teeth, mental health, medicine. They're all part of your health.
Taking advantage of that.
Well, yeah, but it shouldn't be only for some. It should be part of our single payer system. So I think we'd get some of these things if we had a better electoral system. And so we got to fight for it.
There was also a lot of questions about Jagmeet that came in online.
Yep.
And how you think, why you think he failed, and what lessons you've learned from his leadership.
I resist this idea that the leader is everything as much as the political culture tries to create that impression. I think Jagmeet's a really good guy. And as I've knocked on so many doors and talked to so many New Democrats in these months of the leadership campaign, people really, really like him and felt his sincerity. So I think it's a bit of a puzzle, to be honest. But I think the offer didn't change a lot over the last few parliaments. And I also think that there's a particular style of communication that is part of the party's modernization since Jack that I think has run its course of usefulness.
People are pissed off at this.
People are pissed off. They want to see their legitimate anger reflected. They want to see passion, and they want to see straight talk. And I think there's a culture in all political parties of trying to find the right words and thread the needle to say something that everybody will see what they want to hear. And I just, it's not working. And I think people want moral clarity on the big issues of our time, and they want to hear it straight. They want to hear suggestions for solutions they can actually understand, that would actually make their lives better. And so this is an experiment. I don't know if it's going to work, but this campaign is an experiment in doing politics that way.
There were also some questions about the provincial NDP versus the federal, and bridging that divide. A lot of people were saying that the provincial NDP are very more center than left. Do you think that needs to even happen, or?
The provincial sections are all quite different.
Yeah.
When we've been, just in the course of the leadership campaign, there was an Ontario NDP convention, there was a Saskatchewan, there was a Manitoba, so we've been, and then there was BC.
Yeah.
And so we've been a lot with the provincial sections. I think the base of the NDP is quite aligned across the country. I think we really have different political contexts. And, from Manitoba West, there's no Liberal Party provincially. And so the NDP is really like across the aisle from the extreme right in the West. And it's really a two-party system.
Yeah.
That's a very different context, and it's created different policies. The federal NDP, I think, has an opportunity as the smallest of the NDPs, only 7 seats in the entire country, to chart a new course and to try to prove that economic populism on the left, really clear climate policy that's, I think, in line with the majority of Canadians, that this is a winning formula. To actually talk about public ownership, to talk about ways out of the cost of living crisis that will fundamentally take on corporate power. The federal NDP has a chance to prove that a different political formula can actually work. But look, New Democrats are New Democrats. You don't have to bleed orange. Yeah. You believe in taking care of each other. You believe that cooperation is a better principle than competition. We believe in the fundamental public services for everybody. And so there's like 95% of everything aligns. And then there are differences. I have differences with my own BC NDP government over the issue of expanding fossil fuels. And we are allowed to have those differences in the NDP because democratic's in the name, right? We can have debates. But I think that jostling between the provincial and the federal sections has been there forever. And people just have to remember, yes, we are the only party that's federated. You join provincially, you join federally. It happens at once. But there's a difference. Canada's a huge country with a lot of regional differences, and the federal party has a different set of policies on some things.
There was also some questions about, I'm a little bit hesitant to ask these because I think they're a bit nonsensical, but asking, whether you believe in a two-state solution or a one-state solution. I'm going to put it to you because people asked.
Sure.
So what is your position on that? Two-state, one-state?
I found myself saying this on the debate stage during the last election with Hetty Fry, who's the long-time Liberal MP that I was challenging in Vancouver Centre. So this was last spring. And the issue of the genocide came up. And she started trotting out this line about two people living in peace and security. And I just found myself saying something that I didn't plan to say, and I have reflected on it, and I believe it's true. The two-state solution is dead. Israel murdered it.
Yeah.
The two-state solution is lying under the rubble in Gaza. Just picture, people, what kind of negotiation can happen now?
Yeah.
Which Palestinian person who has lost 15 family members is supposed to go and believe that there's some kind of, let's make a deal and shake on the lawn of Camp David? That's over. That wasn't Palestinians who did that. And I think now we see that this is the end game. They don't have a constitution, but they have a basic law that says this is a Jewish state. I don't believe ethno-states can come to a democratic consensus relationship with the people that they've been occupying and now committed genocide against. I don't see how that's possible.
You've been to the West Bank, no?
Been to the West Bank and been to Gaza. In 2009, it was 6 months after Cast led, which, to walk in Gaza City to see government buildings just like reduced to rubble was devastating. And it shocked me and changed me. There are no words to say what has been destroyed now. We've passed the ability for the imagination to grapple with it. But to grind an entire society to dust and ash, that's all previous narratives are buried there. For myself, I think that the idea of a state that is truly pluralistic, that is truly democratic, where everyone has universal human rights, that's the best a nation state can be. How that would work as a one-state solution with the power imbalance between Israel and Palestine, I don't understand how that works either. But I don't think it's for us to decide. And for everyone else in the world to have, I'm a one-stater, I'm a two-stater, it's kind of silly. The genocide is ongoing. There are still people being starved. There are still people dying. There are still attacks happening. We have to stop the genocide still. And then there's an apartheid system that has to be dismantled through outside pressure, particularly the pressure of American citizens on their own government, which feels very far away right now, but that's still one of the biggest levers. And countries like Canada having an independent foreign policy. Once we've stopped the genocide and we've dismantled an apartheid system and had some kind of actual democracy there, like in post-apartheid South Africa, we can start talking about the next stage. And that's for those people who live there and nobody's going anywhere. Those people have to figure that out. We have a lot of work to do on the outside to stop these immense historic harms before that conversation can happen.
Today, Trump declared that signed over the Golan Heights to Israel.
Oh, great.
I'm not sure if you saw that. But
maybe he'll give them the moon next.
Yeah. Well, we already went to the moon. I'm going to go back to, I hope people don't think I didn't come up with my own questions, because I do have my own questions, but I think it's important to take people's questions.
No, it's lovely.
Because some of them were very good. This is from Dave Plant. When will you do the right thing and demand an internal cleanup of NDP executives that have run this party into the ground? And then he follows up with a hockey analogy. I'm not sure if you play hockey. You finish last, you clean the house.
Coaches get fired. Yeah.
You clean the house and you start fresh.
Yeah.
All of the members want this.
Yeah, this is really true that we need really to revitalize democracy in the party. We need to re-democratize the NDP. And I think members who have gone to conventions, in the riding association level, the constitution of the party says that the highest decision-making body is the convention of all the members. So at the convention, there are debates about policy. Every riding association can propose resolutions and they get together and co-sign them. And then somebody's got to sort it all out and figure out what the priority is. And that prioritization process has always been lacked in transparency. So people go to convention and they fought really hard and organized behind a resolution. It never even makes it to the floor. And there's all the shenanigans and people run out the time on the mics and they introduce amendments on amendments and all this like stuff that goes on. And there's a great hunger at the base to be really involved in shaping the party. And as I said before, most of the major decisions of the party have been made by a handful of people in the leader's office. We just have to completely change that culture. We need to decentralize power from the leader's office in some ways. Like we have a democratic constitution. And if we actually lived by it, it's like the Canada Health Act.
Yes.
Like if these mechanisms were enforced, we would have the party, the Democratic Party that everybody craves. And I think this isn't me. This is all of the candidates running are talking about this because the base really wants it and are committed to a much more democratic process and more transparency in the vetting of candidates. And like I've been calling for nomination races and leadership elections to be conducted by Elections Canada. Because in every party, the biggest scandals and foreign interference and all the other things, they happen in nominations, they happen in leadership elections. We're blessed in Canada by a well-respected, neutral elections authority that people trust. So we should have them run every part of the democratic process we can. That would take some things out of where people feel there are shenanigans eternally. I don't know if we blame individuals, if we're like, these people are the problem. I believe there are structures and cultures that are the problem. And having a radically more democratic and more transparent culture in the party, of course you want to hire people who strongly feel that that's important, but things have to change dramatically. I think that's a consensus at the base. And so I'm excited to, if we're able to win, we will change a lot.
I want to end with this because you brought up Canada speaking out both sides of its mouth when it comes to Israel-Palestine. And this is what a lot of my listeners and audience are interested in. And it has to do with Canada continuing to sell arms to Israel and using that US loophole to do so. What do you think can be done to stop this?
Right now, it's so urgent, right? I can't say, well, when I'm prime minister, forget that, right? What do we do right now? This is a question for movements. The NDP has not always been good for people who are, really invested in Palestine solidarity. The NDP has only been on the right side of this issue, in a consistent way. The federal party since 2021, when not through a decision, this one is a rare one, I think, where it wasn't just a decision in the leader's office, unless the decision was we have to let these people have what they want, because the activists within the party had been fighting for years to push the federal party to stop, canceling people for being candidates and for being pro-Palestine. So many people should have been leaders in the NDP who were prevented because of this issue. And the members and the activists within the party fought and won that resolution. So since 2021, the Palestine Solidarity Movement has had a party in Canada, a federal party, that is largely on board. And Jenny Kwan and Leah Gazan and those folks in the NDP, Laurie Idloud, they've been really good in the House. They only have 7 seats. They can't do a whole lot on their own. They keep shining a light on it. And we have the private members bills that would actually close that loophole.
Yeah, Jenny Kwan, I believe.
Jenny Kwan has that one. But they're, whichever MP it is, that little caucus, I call them the Magnificent Seven because they're so embattled in that huge place, they're an ally. But really, we need the power to hold the government to account. And right now, that's a matter of social movements. And we need massive organizing to build the biggest possible movement around this fundamental issue of real two-way arms embargo now. Slam those loopholes closed. It is utterly un-Canadian to be tricking people and lying and providing a conduit to arms and bullets and bombs to a country committing genocide. So what can we do? I mean, we have to keep organizing. And we have to be, there was that moment last year, the March 28th NDP resolution, when it really looked like a bunch of things were the Trudeau was going to be forced. And then there was a last minute compromise And then it got signed, and I think everyone in the movement was a bit confused afterwards. Like, was that a win? Was that a capitulation? We did win the recognition of statehood and a couple of other things. And then Carney comes out and says it has to be a Zionist state.
Oh my
Like,
God,
what the
that
actual...
sentence, not once, but twice.
Yes, he said it first to Christian Amanpour, and everyone was like, he was just, okay, what? And then he repeated it like 2 months later.
A Zionist
It's
state, if you will.
so offensive. So offensive. So obviously, the Prime Minister does not understand the first thing about what's going on.
I mean, that's obvious. That's very obvious.
Yeah.
There's no historical understanding. There's no contextual understanding. And
Just to utter that one absurd sentence.
I wonder who is advising him on this issue. That is what
It's an excellent
scares
question.
me.
But you have 5 Liberal MPs, along with Jenny Kwan, who tried to get into the West Bank. And there's many, many crimes of settlers attacking communities and destroying homes. And like, there's a lot of violence going on there. And they went there from inside the Liberal Party to try to shine a light on that. I think, this is encouraging, but it's still it's a tiny minority within the Liberal Party. But wherever we can find something to hold on to in movement terms, we just have to push. Arms embargo now.
Keep pushing.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Samira. What a pleasure.
We're done.